Views and opinions expressed in this episode of the Psychic Chat Show are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Gareth Lewis and the Psychic Chat Show podcast. Any content provided by our guests are of their opinion and not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organisation, company, individual, or anyone or anything. Welcome to the Psychic Chat Show with me, Gareth Lewis. This week I have with me Steve Mays. Steve believes he helps people through trance healing. Now I know healing works and can be given many different ways. So I'm very interested in Steve explaining to us how he works. So let's introduce this week's guest, Steve Mays. So welcome, Steve. It's wonderful to have you on the Psychic Chat Show this week. How are you?
I'm very well, and thank you very much for inviting me on today.
No problem. It's an interesting subject. Healing is one of many different aspects of spiritualism and the belief of spiritualism as well. So I'm interested to know about trance healing, and really I've never seen it done. So hopefully you can enlighten us a little bit about what that is. But before we start, Steve, how did you actually get into the healing side? What took you down that road?
Well, when I started quite late in life. I was about 40, and I was an absolute, complete non-believer up to then. And a few things happened. I lost my daughter, and I started seeing her, and things were moving around the house, which then led me to speak to a medium, and this lady was my first teacher. And as we moved onwards, I got into a circle, and to start with, healing was the furthest thing away from my mind. I couldn't think of anything more. I don't like to say the word boring, but standing there with your hands out in front of people was not my idea of fun at the time. And I wanted to be up there giving the messages and being in front of people and making people happy that way. Seemed like a more exciting thing to do. But as we moved on through the years, I started to get a push towards healing. Everything that happened seemed to have a healing element to it. So my first real experience with healing is when I started doing spiritual healing. I set a 2-year spiritual healing course, done all my things you have to do for that, got my certificates, everything for the spiritual healing, and did that for a number of years. And then slowly and gradually it moved on from there, and I started to notice that in the group we sat in, I had the energies that joined me in the group for the mediumship and the spiritual healing. There was another energy join me, and I wasn't sure what or who it was, but it felt every time like I had a beard. And this went on for 3 or 4 years, and never really got to know. They wouldn't say who they were. And then when they were working with another trance healer, being interested in that as well, he finally come forward and said he was a doctor. And he was working with me, and the beard was his mask that he pulls down when he's not working. Right. And so from there, it's our partnership has grown from there over the years.
Okay, so before we actually get into the actual trance healing side of it, we'll talk more about that. Let's just go back a little bit. So you was taken into the spiritualist church through the sad loss of your daughter at the time, and you wanted to be not necessarily wanted to be a medium, but that's the reason why you went in. So when you did and you sat for healing at the time, did you find the balance between your mediumship, because that's what you were sitting for at the time, and the healing? So was you getting healing yourself, do you feel, when you were sat there? That's what I'm trying to say.
While I sat and was trying to develop the mediumship side of it, I could tell the difference in the energies from the two. And when we sat in the circle, somebody would come in one night and wasn't feeling too great, I could feel their energy and I could feel the difference. And at the end of the evening, they used to say, you know, I could feel the energy coming from you and I feel much better. But whether I get the healing myself, I'm not really sure about that. I've never, to be honest with you, I've never really been that ill to even really think about whether I get healing myself. I've never asked for it. I know there are many people out there that can teach you self-healing, and I'm sure it's something that can happen, but I've not really overly experienced it myself.
So when you first started and you sat for healing and you talked about going on courses, do you have to go on these courses to be a healer? You know, do you have to, I know you have to train and learn how it's done and you know what to do, but what does the actual course entail? What do you actually do to train to be a healer?
Well, the spiritual healing course that I started with, they teach you about the energies, where the healing comes from, the universal energy, and how that you're just like a channel for the energy. Because all healers, no matter what healing you do, the medium doesn't, we call ourselves healers, but we don't do any healing at all. We're there just as a channel for the energy. So the healing's done from spirit and from the world beyond. So even though we call ourselves healers, so people understand what we do, we don't actually do any healing ourselves. And in the course, you're taught about the energy moving through the hands. You have a little bit about the body, the dynamics of the body and where everything is. And there's also a lot of you have the medical side of it, but you've also got the practical side about keeping records and how to have your own sanctuary and what you need to do, and all the insurances and all the things along that line.
So really, it's not just a case of you going on this and it's a couple of week course and there you go, there's a certificate, you're a healer. There's a lot into it. There's a lot of, like you said, the insurance side, the responsibility side, the science really. There must be a science behind it as well, especially when you're working the body, the human body. I don't know, but I'm just going to guess you're not a doctor. You don't claim to be a doctor. So learning all that must be difficult, really, to learn the human body and how it works, and never mind how the healing side works. So just going on that. So when you're actually giving, and before we go on to the trance in a second, but before we go on to that, when you first started, how does that feel, Steve, when you're actually giving healing? Do you feel it? Do you feel the energy? Do you feel any warmth, any difference to yourself when you're doing it?
Well, to start with, when I was first doing the spiritual healing, you get a warmth in the hands. You can get tingling feelings, and your patient at the time can feel the warmth. They can feel tingling. They feel relaxed, and this is as the energy's flowing through you. Also, the course we took is actually was a 2-year course. Every couple of weekends or evenings, every couple of weeks we had to go to a class and sit. So there's quite a lot that you had to learn apart from the healing. The healing's really the smaller part of it. The bigger part is all the processes you have to go through and the things you have to know and understand, because the people that come to you, they can be quite vulnerable, some people, and they can be quite ill, and you've got to know how to be around those people. And like children and pregnant people, you understand that there's different ways and things you have to do with those.
Could you actually make someone, not necessarily make someone worse, but could you make someone I don't know, not better, but do you know what I mean? Can you make someone feel worse than what they did before they came in if you don't know what you're doing? That's what I mean. If you don't know what you're doing, is there a possibility that you could make someone feel worse?
If the healing's done right and you realize it's not you doing the healing and you allow it to happen, then I do believe that the body and spirit will only give and the body will only take exactly what it needs. So you can't hurt anybody or make anybody worse. I always say there's only two outcomes. You'll either nothing will happen at all or you'll feel better. So, but if you go into it with a mindset that you are doing the healing and you start to force the energy, or you use your energy rather than spirit energy, you can then make somebody, you can higher their blood pressure, you can do all sorts of, so you could technically harm somebody if you do it the wrong way, which is where all the training comes in.
And that's why it's so important to have that training. Just before I'm going to go on to the trance healing just now, but I just wanted to ask you one question. You kind of mentioned it before. What's the insurance for what you do? Do you have to have full insurance? Do you are you covered? Is there an insurance for what you do?
Yeah, it's the same with all like Reiki and spiritual healing. They all have to have, you all have to have insurance. Well, I say you have to have it. I'm not sure if there's any legal precedent that you have to have it. You can do healing without it, but you open yourself up to lots of problems then if you get somebody that is a bit upset with what you've done. So insurance is, I would say, quite an important thing to have, the same as anything else, driving a car or working, public liability insurance, in case the person comes to your home or wherever you're working and they hurt themselves or trip over. So it's quite an important part of it.
Yeah, let's go on to the trance, because I am quite intrigued, and that's why we've got you here today. Trance healing. So we've explained what healing is, and we've explained, how you started the journey, and then that just develops from one thing to another. You mentioned before that as you were training and you were sat in your circle or in your group, that you felt the energy changing, and there's a trance healer there then. So was that then the stage where you felt a change to your healing? Did you feel like you was going to start working on a different level, or did someone tell you that's what you're going to be doing?
When my guide that joined me, the chap with the mask, that's Mr. Klaus. I used to call him Dr. Klaus. He's a German doctor that lived here about 80 or 90 years ago. But he's a cardiothoracic consultant surgeon, or he was. So he now likes to be called Mr. because Mr's more appropriate for him. When he first came, the energy was definitely different while I was healing, and I could feel more him with me. And the more I got into it, and the more I sat for the trance state, the closer he got. And there was quite a few instances where I used to do it on friends and family, just if they had aches or pains or headaches. I would sit and allow myself to go off into a light trance state, and then I would feel him come in, and then I'd just let him do whatever he wants to do. And I think the turning point for me was my partner at the time. She had a real bad shoulder. So I sat her on a chair in the front room, and I got myself into the trance state, and Mr. Klaus came in, and as he was moving my hands over her shoulder, in my mind I could physically see inside her arm and her shoulder, and I could see all the bones and the muscles and all the tendons, and I could see them manipulating them and moving them around and pulling them. And after we finished, her shoulder was much better, and a couple more times, and I don't think she's had any more trouble with it since. So that was the start of it.
So you talk about trance, and just for everybody out there who's listening and watching, what is trance then? So what is trance? What's the difference between you just doing it and putting your hands over someone, because that's, say, spiritual healers do it, not necessarily to touch people, I believe. but just putting the hands over.
Yeah.
So just explain to everybody what trance is then, and how do you know that you've altered that state of consciousness?
Well, trance is like you have your normal state of being, which we are now every day, and then take it if you go to sleep. When you go to sleep, your body and your mind, or your mind, goes into an altered state. It changes frequencies. So when you go to sleep, you go into that dream state where you dream. Your consciousness has changed into another state of being, if you like. So what trance is where you train yourself to sit and allow yourself to move into that altered state. So you go from beta state, which we are all in at the moment, your everyday living, and you work your way through the states alpha, and you get to theta state, which is another state of consciousness, is where the trance starts to take hold. And just after that, you get sleep state, which is what you do when you go to sleep. This allows the energy of spirit to move in. They don't, in trance, some people have the idea that they overtake you, and some people say, oh, don't do that, it's dangerous. They'll control your body. Spirit will never actually enter your body. They use your electric field, your magnetic field that we create, which people may know as the aura. They use the aura as they come close, and they manipulate the energy in the aura to come close to us, if you like, to be in that, when you're in that state. That allows them to bring their energy in and use us as a transformer to bring the energy through to other people. So it's just an altered state, really.
Yeah, that's interesting the way you explain that, and to be able to know the difference. As I say, you're not actually asleep, you're not being overtaken like some of these programs you see where,
No.
mediums, click and all of a sudden there's someone else. And on one of the episodes, we are talking about different states of consciousness, and the way it works. But yeah, so when you're doing that, and you say you're not being overtaken, you just know where you're guided to, and you just know what you're doing. So are you aware of everything what's going on when you're doing it? Are you aware of what you're doing? Are you aware of your surroundings? Because when I've spoken to people before about when they're in a state of trance, sometimes they come away and they say, no, I don't remember anything what I said. I don't remember anything what I do. I've got my own views on that, and I'm sure you have as well. So what's your kind of like interest in, understanding in, do you remember, because do you remember what you've done and what you've said?
Yeah, there's lots of different levels of trance. People say there's deep trance. It's more of a blending with the spirit. As you go into the altered state, spirit, you allow them to move closer to you. And there's different levels. And like you said, there are people that can go so deep into the trance that when they come back, they don't remember anything because their mind is stilled so much. It then becomes, you get people talking through trance, so their guide will speak through them. And if they get deep enough, the guide will be talking, and because their awareness is taken away and they're in that deep state, when they come back, because it's not actually their thoughts that are going through their consciousness, they can't remember anything. And then there's lighter states where you're still aware, but you're still in that state of trance to a point. And when I work normally with people one-to-one, I'm in a lighter state of trance, so I'm quite aware of what's going on in the room and where I am to move around, and I can hold a conversation with somebody, but I'm still aware of my healing guys that are working through me. I'm still aware of the energy that they're working through. So it's like there's two different minds. There's my mind that I'm watching and seeing people and talking to people, and then there's another part which is the spirit side, if you like, which they're using to do whatever they need to do. And so I just let them get on with what they're doing. Try not to interfere too much, because as you say, I'm not a doctor and that, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how the healing really works. I don't think anybody really understands how it works. But a lot of the outcomes that we've had, and there's thousands and thousands of people given testimonies about how the healing's helped them and work. So it does work, and it's been scientifically proved now that healing works. But I don't think anybody really understands how. So I just let them get on with it. And
you said, interesting point that you say it's scientifically proven that healing works, and I totally agree that it definitely works. I've had healing. I'm sure there's many people who've had healing to whatever extent, whether it's, I know a few years ago when I first met my partner, and she had a broken ankle. Well, she'd had a broken ankle and she still had the pain from it every now and again. And one night it was hurting her, this ankle, and she said, "Can you do some healing?" And I just sat there, just watching TV, and I just put my hand, and it got hotter, and I'm sending that thought out.
yeah,
And she would turn around now to this day and say, "Since then, I have never had any pain and any problem." She said, "I just felt the heat." And I don't claim to be a healer. I believe
no.
healers. We're all got the ability to help people.
Yeah.
Work as a medium as well. But so I know it works. But you just said they're scientifically proven. So how do the medical profession and the hospitals, how do they accept, or do they not accept, people like you? Do you go into hospitals? Are you allowed into hospitals?
Years ago, they were very skeptical of healing and what it done. They thought it might undermine the medical practice, and people would suffer more if they chose the healing route. But over the years, and as more people are becoming aware and more understanding of it, you can have spiritual healing and Reiki healing in hospital. There's a lot of hospitals now that and hospices that accept the healing as a complementary therapy, helps with the medical side. It gives you an all-round healing, so it's not just the physical healing, say like cancer patients and that have to go through all the pain, the drugs, and all stuff like that. The spiritual healing, the Reiki healing, when it's asked for in a hospital, they will find a healer to come in, and this is on more of a spiritual, emotional side, and it can help with sort of phobias, anxiety, help with sleep, even the fear of the future, and which has been proven through quite a few researches that have been done with patients, how well they feel afterwards, and how it's reduced the amount of drugs they need, and it's reduced the pain. So in a way, it would be fantastic if hospitals and all that, or the NHS, not that they pay for anything like that at the moment, but it would be great in the future if they would have a part of the hospital which had the healers in, the holistic side and that, the complementary side, where they could work with the medical profession, so we get a more all-round healing, and it would probably save the NHS lots of money. It would make people feel better, get them healed quicker. So
like any aspect of our job, shall we say, me as a medium, you as a healer, and I've always said, I've said it so many times before, if your sitter, your client, your patient, whoever, goes out just feeling that little bit better than when they came in, you're not cured them, you've just helped with the pain, you've helped with the anxiety, you've helped with, as long as they go away with that, then there can't be anything wrong in what you do or what I do. you know, because you've helped someone. And I'm surely
Yeah,
that's the most important thing, isn't it, Steve? You know, that's the most important thing.
yeah. That is the greatest thing I have by doing this is when you work on somebody and they're in a lot of pain, and then suddenly they can't feel that pain, and you can see it in their face. It's just the joy that they have because the pain's gone, and it's so rewarding that you've helped with that. We can't ever promise to give a cure because we can't say we can cure anything. I always tell people that I like to say there's two ways: it will either help or it won't. So they've really got nothing to lose by trying. And people always, healers or anything spiritual always seems to be a last resort. So all the doctors have given up on them, they can't do anymore. And the last resort is, oh, well, perhaps we will try the healing, just see if that helps. And talking with my team and that, they've said there is a fine balance point between them being able to help and not being able to help. Things can go so far that they just can't do anything from that point on. They can just probably help to ease the pain a bit, but they can't turn anything around. So if people were to come and seek a healer out, or a spiritual Reiki, spiritual healing, whatever sort of healing it be, sooner rather than later, I think they would find that they wouldn't suffer so much. And there may be more, I don't like to use the word cures, but there may be more people would be relieved of their problems than if they left them till the last minute. And I just think it's getting it out there and people understanding and realizing that there's more to the world than just us.
Yeah, you make an interesting point there. You know, you don't claim, and no healer should claim that, you know, they can cure something, you know, and this is where I think sometimes people have that misconception of healers, of like, oh, they think they can cure that, they can cure that. You're not saying that you can cure something. You're saying that you can help to heal someone, you know, and help to take the pain away or ease the pain or ease the suffering. Because ultimately, if you agree, I don't know, you tell me, you know, if someone comes to you and they're terminally ill, you know, you're not going to turn around and say, I can cure you, you know, you're just going to help with the last few years, last few weeks, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I've had one or two terminally ill patients, and they've said, I've made it quite clear from the start that this is not going to heal them. They're still going to be terminally ill, but it will. What healing does, it helps with the pain, as we've said before, and the anxiety and everything, but it also starts to help your spirit, and it starts to help your spirit to get ready for the journey home, if you like, to the passing back to home. And I've had one chap that I see for about a year and a half, and he was terminally ill with cancer. And he came to see me every couple of weeks. And he was told by the medical profession, and I know they don't really know one way or the other, that he had only got a few months to live. But he lived on for nearly another year and a half. And the last few weeks of his life, he was at home, and I went to see him, and we sat and had a real frank chat together. And I said, this is not going to cure, and he understood that. And I said, but what it is it's preparing your spiritual self to return home, to make the passing that much more gentle and easier. And he said to me, I'll tell you now that the ward he was on, there was 8 other patients, the same cancer as him. They were all on the same treatments, and all the other 7 of them, they had real bad side effects. They were in hospital for the rest of their life. They couldn't get out their bed. But he says, because of what you've done, he said, I truly believe I had no side effects. He says, I was not bedridden until the last couple of months. He said, so my quality of life has been that much better because of the healing. And he said, I truly believe that. And when he did finally pass away, I spoke to his loved ones, and they said it was such a peaceful passing. It was lovely.
See, that's nice. Again, at least you've done something. You've helped someone to deal with the last few weeks, last few months, and you can't claim that you prolonged their life by doing it, by doing the healing.
No.
But, I personally feel that you helped them, and maybe you did, maybe you did.
Yeah.
We don't know. That, like I said, sometimes you just don't know, but you'd like to think so. But going back to your trance and to your trance healing, you talk about your team, which you mean your spirit team.
Yeah.
And you talked about your main guy who works with you, and it was Dr.
Klaus.
And you say that he was a doctor 80, 90 years ago in Germany, worked here, sorry, you said he was German. Have you actually researched that? Do you know that to be true? Have you looked into him? So when you got this, and you're like, okay, well, who are you? And this is who I am. Do you think, okay, let's find out?
Yeah. I'm not one to go hunting for things, because I always feel that spirit comes to us because they're just an energy when you pass. Us as human beings, we need something to hold on to. So they show themselves to us, like with healers, they always have doctors and surgeons. They show us in that form so that we have something to work with. And as I first started the journey, when I first started working properly with the general public, I used to do a lot. My hands used to move a lot, and I used to look like I was stitching and doing things like you would see in a surgical room. And it's just the way my hands felt they needed to move. But later on, and like now, that doesn't happen quite so much because I don't need it now. It was just, that was more done for me so that I realized that they were doing something. But the further on you get and the more you realize that they're doing something, you don't have to know what they're doing. And I just trust that it's happening now. I don't do all that now because I don't need to know that they're doing something. So a lot of the time now when I sit and I'm with people healing, I don't actually feel anything. All I feel is just the energy as they connect with me. And that's really all I feel. And I try and keep myself out of it most of the way. And then when it's all finished, the only way I really know what's going on is by what the feedback from the patient.
Yeah.
So I haven't really. Stuttgart was a hospital that he worked in, and on an exercise we did in a workshop once, he come through and give me the name of the hospital, which I can't pronounce, and I did nip off and check that, and there is a hospital with that, and they have got a surgical ward and that, but his name, I could never narrow him down to his name because he, as he only lived a few years ago, there's no saying that he's not got grandchildren and that are living now. And if he was to give me his proper name, who's to say that I won't go off and say, oh, I've got your grandfather working through me, which is not what they want. So they don't always give you their full name and that.
Okay, because it's just that's something I would do, you see, because I'm that kind of nosy person.
Yeah.
Because I'd want to go and get that validation and that, just knowing. I respect what you're saying there. Was at least you tried, but at least then you found an hospital by that name, which your consciousness didn't know about. I presume, you'd never heard of that place.
Yeah. No.
Or maybe that's just your evidence as well. I only asked that question because, again, that's just something I would do.
Yeah. I know lots of people that have researched what the guides have brought through and information, and it's all been correct, and they've been able to validate it. But I've never really had the urge to do that. I've got a Chinese guide, it's Chao Li. Now, whether that's their real names, but when I asked for a name, the first name that popped in my head was Chao Li, so I take that as that's his name, and all the names and everything are just for us because we all like to have a name for things that are happening, but they don't need names or anything. So I just trust what's going on. Just try and keep it out of it. I'm not really a nosy person that way, so
I am. But you know, it's you know, they give you a name, and you know, because we associate things, we need to logically
Yeah,
make sense
our
of
logical minds
or
need to know.
need to know, and that sometimes, you know, I know I've discussed it with my students as well. Sometimes you need to come away from that logic, because not everything what we do is logical. And
Yeah,
I assume you agree with that in your
yeah.
as well.
And sometimes that wanting to know so much can hinder what's going on.
Yeah.
Because if you're getting, especially with a trance, if your physical mind is getting into it and you want to see and be nosy what's going on, your consciousness is coming back in, which brings you out of the trance, which doesn't allow then spirit to do what they want to do. So the more you can keep out of it, the better.
So when you're doing your trance healing and you've got a patient or a client, whatever you call them, with you, and you're doing your trance healing and then you finish, how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel happy, more, you know, you've healed yourself kind of thing? Do you get some, how do you feel after you've given a especially in trance, because I say you've gone into that altered state, and I know some trance mediums, when they're doing trance demonstrations and trance readings, some say they come out and they feel exhausted, they feel like they're not there for a short time afterwards, you know, and that's just their views. How do you feel after you've given a healing session in trance?
If I sit or do a lot of healing during the day, then towards the end of the day you start to become a bit more drained, if you like. But with like spiritual surgery, Reiki, and all them sorts of healings, which are slightly different, you shouldn't really lose your energy. You should be still quite high with your energy, because it's not you that's doing the healing. You're using the energy around you. You'll have some healers that will come out and say they're really drained after it, but really that's because they're using their energy to heal as well. And if you do that, which is not always a conscious decision, sometimes it's a subconscious decision. If that happens, then that will drain your energy, and it takes a little while to get back to normal. But after I've finished healing, I feel on top of the world. I feel great, and I believe that I do get healing as well as I'm doing it. As the healing's passing through me, I benefit from it as well. And I've always believed what you give out, you get back 10 times over. So you get more healing. So yeah, I do feel great. And as we were saying before about self-healing, I've never really questioned the self-healing for myself. I have tried it a couple of times, but nothing's happened. So I just assume that I can't get it.
Yeah, this is what I would have wanted to
But
say. Sorry, I just want to say this is what I was going to
yeah.
Hopefully you might answer as she was going to carry on there anyway. Because my next thing was, can you heal yourself? You know, not necessarily you. So let's just someone sat at home now and they're not feeling great, or they've got pains, or they've just got mental health problems, or whatever it may be. Can we heal ourselves? And if so, what would you suggest the best thing to do to someone who's just sat there now and they think, I can't go and see a healer, you know, I can't go out to the house for whatever reason, but I need some healing. So what would you suggest the best thing for that person to do if you think we can heal ourselves?
Yeah, well, normally when we have problems and issues, it's our surroundings, and our aura is out of balance, and the whole body's out of balance, which is because every type of healing and everything that is around us, everything is just energy. And if that energy gets out of balance, it can block and start to cause pains and aches and that. So meditation is a good way of bringing yourself back into balance. And I would suggest colours quite a good and an easier way to meditate. If you sit and just be still and be quiet and just allow your mind to drift, and then slowly and gradually you can allow the thoughts in your mind to start drifting away, and then just visualization is quite a bit of it. It's visualize colors, and for me, the color green is a good color because the green breaks up energy. And if you visualize yourself in a ball of green light, and then as you visualize that green flowing through you and around you, where the problem is, or if you've got a pain or an ache, where that is, just see that green intensifying on that spot, and then visualize it falling out through your feet, going down into the earth, and then follow that by blue, which is always a good healing color, and allow that to flow around you, and just let it flow for a while, and then seal it up with a lovely white light. And because white light is always a spiritual color, and just see yourself sitting in a bubble of white light.
I would definitely suggest whoever's listening to this and people listening to it to try that, because it seems like, I'm not going to say it's an easy thing to do, because meditation,
Yeah,
can't do, but just to sit and just like you said, just imagine, just think about that colour being around you and surrounding you, and putting that intention of healing out, and maybe knowing or unknowingly your friends in the spirit world will come out and help you with the healing. One thing I'm asking people, Steve, before we finish up is, what would you say your best experience, and what would you say your worst experience as a trance healer or doing your healing would be?
Well, I wouldn't say I've had bad experiences while healing, but the worst experience that I've had myself and for somebody else is when I first started with the general public. I held a surgery where I lived, and the first couple of weeks, I had a lady come who had a bad throat, and she'd been to the doctors, and they didn't seem to be able to do very much. And as I was working, my healing team came in, and as I was working, I did think the energy felt quite strong. And as I watched them working with her throat and that, I was thinking in the back of my mind, this is quite strong. Anyway, we finished the healing, got up, asked how she was, and she said I could feel them doing a lot around my throat, and she said it does feel much better now. Anyway, the next day she rang me up and said, I'm sure it's fine, but I just wanted to get your reassurance. It was absolutely wonderful yesterday. I had no pain in my throat whatsoever. It completely gone. She said, but last night it felt like I'd swallowed razor blades. He said the pain was in my throat. And of course, then I panicked, not working too much and not understanding too much. I hadn't had problems of people with pain. Most people have been all right up to then. So as I was driving at the time, I drive a lorry for a job. And I was just sort of connecting with them to ask them what the problem was. And they told me that because they had done an operation on her throat, it's the same as any earthly operation. You need a recovery time afterwards. Even though the recovery time sometimes is quite short when they do it, you may not even need it. But sometimes, depending on the person, we're all different. They needed recovery time. They said, but this afternoon it will all ease off and it will be fine and she'll be okay. So I told her this, and they said drink plenty of water, and they said if she needs to take normal painkillers we all take, don't not take them because you think you shouldn't, take them if you need to. And then so I told her this, and then I had an argument with them saying, if you're going to do this, I ain't doing it, because this is not what I'd done the signed up for, sort of thing, hurting people. And they said, no, it's fine. It's the way it works. And the next day she phoned me and said, oh, Steve, yeah, you was right. That afternoon it went off. She goes, my throat's absolutely fine now. And she was over the moon with it.
Yeah, that's a good experience and experience in the same experience. It's so you had that kind of like worry, but then you had validation that things were right. One thing you've got to before we do finish, Steve, you've got to actually turn around and say, one, you're not a doctor, and two, you would always recommend your clients to carry on taking any medication they're prescribed, alongside what healers do as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'd never tell anybody to stop whatever a doctor's told them to do. And I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe. I don't give any diagnosis of anything because I'm not allowed to, and I wouldn't want to anyway.
Yeah, that's so important to get across as well. You know, that healers, trance healers, whatever, Reiki healers, whatever they may be, you know, a good one would always say, always listen to your doctor.
If you ever have a healer tell you they can cure you, then avoid them, because they can't say that.
Yeah, I think that's something that's a kind of a good note to leave on as well. You know, ultimately, healing is an holistic therapy.
Yeah,
Or proven, like you said before, you stated, a proven therapy scientifically as well. But the advice is always stick to what your doctor says.
yeah.
Steve, I know you do healing, and I know you do. You have your own little surgery. If people want to get in touch with you to either book an appointment with you or find out more about your trance healing, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I've got a website which is spiritualsurgery.co.uk. I'm on Facebook, Steve Mays. They can find me there. They can message me through Messenger on Facebook. I've got an email address which is Steve Mays Spiritual Surgery at gmail.com, or stevepmays@gmail.com. And on the website, you can book healing sessions, and there's workshops and courses that hopefully are coming up. So
that's brilliant.
And hopefully I'm going to be out once we get back out into the world, traveling around and doing some healing and demonstrations.
Good, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. So head over to Steve's website. I'll put the details on, and so that you've got the links there to get hold of Steve. But give him a shout, give him a message, and I'm sure he'll be able to book you an appointment, or at least guide you to where he's going to be locally in your area at some point. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
An eye-opening way to understand the different sides of healing and trance healing and how it works. So, as I said, on Psychic Chat Show this week, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me, Gareth, and it's been great. And I hope we help people understand a little bit more about healing.
I'm sure you have done. I'm sure you have done. As I said, you know, find all the details at Steve's website. But for now, Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth.